Galante. It is great to have you all here with me today as I dive into a topic that is very close to my heart. As an athlete, I've experienced firsthand the impact of mental health and athletic performance. In the world of sports, we often admire athletes for their impressive physical abilities, unwavering determination, and extraordinary accomplishments. However, there is an essential aspect of their success that often goes unnoticed: their mental well-being. Lately, the impact of mental health in athletes' performances has gained attention and significance. In this presentation today, I will explore the relationship between mental health and athletic skills and performance. Throughout history, sports have witnessed numerous stories of triumph and perseverance, but they also reveal the challenges and pressures athletes face on and off the fields and courts. The constant competition, expectations, and scrutiny can take a toll on an athlete's mental state, affecting their focus, confidence, and the ability to deal with tough times in and out of the game. Now tell me, have you ever wondered to yourself when watching your favorite sport on TV, what is this player thinking during their match? Or, geez, how are they gonna do with outside life and then go play in their game? You probably haven't, right? Understanding how mental health and athletic performance are interconnected is crucial, not only for an athlete's well-being, but also for advancing sports science and coaching practices. Now, as I myself am an athlete that struggles with ADHD and anxiety disorders, I've learned throughout the years of my playing that you can overcome anything when you have the correct mindset. Everyone, and I mean everyone, gets anxious under pressure, and some handle it differently than others. And with that being said, even the most famous and well-known athletes experience the same issues and pressure points. Paul Wallman defines mental health in athletes as a state of successful performance or mental function, resulting in productive activities, fulfilling relationships with other people, and the ability to adapt to change or cope with adversity. Now, during an athlete's time playing their sport, some may come across issues that occur outside the sport world. Athletes have to deal with personal struggles such as family issues, relationships, emergencies, and more. Intense training and injuries can also affect an athlete's mindset on their playing once they fully recover. And if not properly handled, a pressure-filled moment can impact players' performances and mentalities, but I'll further discuss this later. Aristotle, who we know is a Greek philosopher, believed in the concept of eudaimonia, which I learned in my 11th grade moral philosophy class. He argued that the highest human good is the realization of one's full potential, which involves the development of virtues and the exercise of reason. Aristotle's notion of virtue ethics involves cultivating positive character traits. In the context of athletes dealing with conflict and adversity, the virtues such as courage, resilience, and perseverance becomes crucial. These virtues enable athletes to confront challenges, learn from setbacks, and to continue their pursuit of excellence. So talking about mental health is extremely crucial for improving athletic performance and the overall well-being of athletes. Mental health can affect an athlete's ability to focus and make decisions during their games. The Yerkes-Dodson law is an explanation for why athletes tend to lose their focus on their sport during the game. An athlete's arousal levels need to get to a certain point in order to feel completely stressed out. Starting with low arousal, which occurs when an athlete finds their sport so boring that they do not apply their full efforts. Secondly is optimal arousal, which occurs when an athlete feels engaged enough in their sport to push themselves a little bit harder than usual. And lastly, high arousal, when the sport feels so stressful that you may panic or freeze as a result. This situation will lead to sports anxiety the most. Overall, with the Yerkes-Dodson law, the efforts of athletes are extremely slim. Now, let's go back to injuries. Poor mental health can lead to injuries and poor performance. The emotional response of athletes to injury questionnaire, also shortened to as ERAIQ, was adapted to collect information from athletes at an NCAA Division I university about their response to injury. 250 athletes volunteered to participate, specifically 128 males and 122 females, with the mean age being around 20 years old. These athletes represented 13 different sports teams that represented athletes who have experienced injury and those who have not. And out of all 250 athletes, frustration and anger were the two most strongly experienced emotions. Mental health not only affects the injury, but it also increases the worry of recovery time, increased rate of re-injuring, and or reduced performance afterward. Psychological responses following the injury may include negative emotions, mood disturbances, failure-based depression, devastation, reduced confidence, and restlessness. And these psychological responses can impact an athlete's mental health and recovery. Having a good state of mind allows playing to the highest potential. It allows for more confidence and better motivation to play well. But a poor attitude and mindset can lead to slow play and no positive inputs to the team. And remember, this doesn't affect just one person, but the entire team and group. Now, some may argue that mental health issues are not as important as your physical fitness in athletics. Your strength in whatever sport you may be playing is far more important than your mental state, because it is what the outside looks like rather than on the inside. And sure, I can understand this perspective, because working out and getting stronger is extremely important for outperforming. But as someone with ADHD and anxiety disorders, as mentioned earlier, mental health is crucial to your physical fitness. Everyone's mental health is extremely important for not only sports, but for your overall health. For example, the CDC, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, talks about how depression increases the risk for many types of physical health problems, such as diabetes, heart disease, and even strokes. Mental illness can impact your entire body. Bad health in the brain can induce headaches, stomach aches, and can even provide dangerous health issues along the way. They don't say a healthy mind is key to a healthy life for no reason. Now, others can suggest that athletes should just toughen up and not focus on their mental state while they're playing. Well, the negative consequences of neglecting mental health can result in substance abuse, homelessness, suicide, and a poor lifestyle, and these are just some of the very few. Olympic gymnast Simone Biles shared that in 2020, she made headlines when she withdrew from various events due to her mental health concerns. Her case resulted in loads of criticism. However, her case shed light on the pressure that athletes face and the need to prioritize mental health, no matter how high the level of play may be. With the influence of Biles and other world-famous athletes, others can look up to these if they can relate to such issues and encourage themselves to work past them. It gives motivation for other athletes to push through whatever challenges they may be faced with. Overall, talking about mental health problems is extremely important because it helps athletes realize that it's not something to be ashamed of. When we openly discuss mental health, we make it easier for people to seek help without feeling judged. And by discussing this, it empowers people to understand and manage their mental well-being, teaching them ways to handle their stress and take care of themselves. Let's go back to philosophy really quick. In Book 1 of Nicomachean Ethics, Aristotle introduces the idea that the highest good for humans is the activity in the soul with conformity with excellence and virtue. This activity, according to Aristotle, is closely linked to the pursuit of eudaimonia, which means flourishing or well-being. His discussions on virtue, character development, and the pursuit of eudaimonia can offer insights into aspects of mental well-being. As athletes navigate the physical and mental challenges inherent in sports, it is extremely important to recognize that mental health is not a separate entity, but an integral part of the overall athletic experience. And by creating a culture that values mental well-being, encouraging open dialogue, providing accessible resources, we can empower athletes to optimize their performance and build resilience and pursue success not only on the field and courts, but in their broader lives. Plato's allegory of the chariot in Phaedrus can offer another touching analogy for the unity required between the rational and emotional aspects of an athlete's psyche. The charioteer represents reasoning and truth, and the chariots represent mind and body. One horse shows rational nature, and the other one shows passion. Therefore, as we contemplate mental health and athletic performance, we find resonance in these timeless philosophical insights. To truly excel in sports is to not only conquer opponents on the field and courts, but to conquer internal struggles with a resilient and virtuous mindset. Let us all champion a cultural shift within the sporting community, urging coaches, athletes, and administrators to prioritize mental well-being. Through an open dialogue, demystifying, and proactive support systems, we as people can collectively contribute to an environment where the pursuit of excellence is synonymous with a holistic commitment to the health and resilience of every individual athlete. And as we move forward, let us break down the shame surrounding mental health in sports, recognizing and addressing the mental aspects of athleticism, and that it's not a sign of weakness, but a testament to the strength and courage it takes to excel in the spirit, mind, and body. This is what makes mental health good, true, and beautiful. And whether you're listening to this as an athlete or not, mental health overall is something that can make or break you. Mentally preparing for anything and everything is extremely key to success. And for the athletes, know that deep down you're not alone and your thoughts will always matter. Do not let a poor mindset get in the way of getting what you want to achieve. The greatest opponent that we will ever face is ourselves. Thank you.
I really liked your graph with the data that they surveyed NCAA athletes, right? But I noticed that the sports with the highest, I guess you said stress and anxiety, were women's sports.
Yeah.
Was there anything in the data that talks about the differences in mental health between women and men?
So, yeah, actually, I wrote this more in my essay, but there's a lot of issues concerning women, especially in unfairness, and so depending on the women, of course, the survey kind of overall showed that women tend to have more issues regarding specific things in their sports, such as maybe more outplaying, and it seems like men typically have they just have more of the advantage in terms of strength and athleticism, and a lot of the times women tend to have the most mental health problems. And I feel like naturally, like women just kind of have more issues regarding, that could be maybe teammates or coaches, but a lot of women can't take that in as easy as men might. So a lot of the issues, because women's gymnastics was the highest on that survey. And so it talks about, especially with Simone Biles, she had dealt with a lot of personal issues and even team issues regarding her mental state. And so I think that overall women have the less advantage in terms of what they're specifically dealing with and whether or not they can toughen up better than men.
Yeah. And then also in talking about, we're talking about elite athletes, those that really excel at their sport and they have a lot of pressure. Do you think that those who participate in athletics and are successful because of that pressure, that does participating in sports actually help someone's mental well-being? Are they able to deal with stress and anxiety better than maybe someone who doesn't participate in sports?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say that sports anxiety, there's obviously, I think, unfortunately, that while there is good to have that pressure and you want to have something that's going to want you to excel, the problem is that a lot of people don't see it that way and they tend to take their mental health problems as something more negative. So when they're facing something like that, they don't have the mindset of, this is going to make me want to work more and push me forward. They see it more as, oh, I can't get over this, or anything that just results in something very poorly. So I do think and believe, to answer your question, that having that anxiety and stress, if you will, can help exceed somebody to want to do better. However, people don't see it that way, and it just leads to poor mental health instead.
As you move on towards collegiate athletics, can you tell us how you will use your findings as a college athlete? And the second part to that question, how are you going to help your future teammates with their mindset?
Yeah, good question. Actually, so for my club team right now, I have the role of being a practice captain, which means that I am making sure everybody's staying in the right routine, balance, whether that's, same practice shirt, whether that's how they're feeling outside. And so I've taken it into account this year specifically because this topic means a lot to me, to make sure that my teammates probably aren't going to admit how they're feeling off the court, but I've taken into account that to ask them, kind of have follow-ups. Maybe that's every other week, just like, hey, how are you doing mentally right now? Because obviously physical performance sometimes they can hide that with that, but I think that you never know what somebody's going through unless you have that conversation. So I think bringing what I have now into college, I'm trying to aspire to be that leader and to lead people into being, hey, like, you're not alone in this. We all deal with stuff, and I'm just know, like, I'm gonna be there for you. So I think I want to bring that into college, making sure that my teammates feel like they're not alone and that they can talk to somebody if they're feeling XYZ about the sport. So,
Thank you.
I would like to go back to the chart and the data. There were, it wasn't specified, I'm assuming it's women's softball, women's volleyball that you surveyed.
yes.
Those were some of the lowest compared to others. Like women's track was high, gymnastics was high.
Yeah.
Why might that be kind of an exception? Right? Like why would those sports have a low level of anxiety for injury and return compared to the others? Did you look at anything like that? Because obviously the highest ones were women who were anxious.
Yeah.
But
Sure.
what about there were a few that they weren't anxious at all? It seemed very low.
I think that even if it was low, there was still that level of anxiety there. However, because I did another study actually on why those specific sports were higher than the other. And I mean, obviously I don't play those sports, so I'm not very biased to it, but I did see that a lot of the times the preparation and like going into those sports performances before the actual performing was the reason why the sports anxiety was so high. And for the lower sports, it tended to be like during play. So for gymnastics, it was showing how just the mental prepare right before they're performing and how they're going into it was the reason that they were feeling the ways they were. And like Simone Biles, how I mentioned before, she dropped out of her competition due to her wanting to go into that level of play. She had a lot of depression, and she had some extreme anxiety leading into going into those sports. And so I found to see that the preparation beforehand and before preparing for those was the reason that the level of anxiety was so high compared to volleyball and the other women's sports specifically.
And this just came to mind. I'm realizing with the softball and volleyball being low
Yeah.
compared to track and gymnastics, you're going out there and actively working as a group as a team at the same time.
Right.
Whereas the others, it's a team sport, but it's individualistically organized. So
Exactly.
maybe that might be playing something into it.
Definitely.
What does, for you as an athlete, what does the idea you brought up earlier,
Yes.
for an athlete, ideally, what does that look like for you?
I think for me personally, it's just making sure that I'm staying in the correct balance. Like I talked about spirit, mind, and body. I believe that if you don't have that balance and having that routine, then you're not going to succeed and play with the highest potential. And if one is higher than the other, then it's not balanced. I'm not going to perform the way I really would. So I think tying that into eudaimonia, the well-being part is just having those three in line and in balance, and that's how I think I perform to the best I can.
So physically, sort of mentally, and then
Spiritually.
okay. So with that in mind, you bring up mental health, and you're saying that you also have had struggles as well. So being someone that has that struggle, my question for you is, if sort of performance is a part of it, right? Of coming to every way, this idea where you can sort of hit your capacity or your limits, right? What would you say to someone who says that, well, because I don't see, you brought ADHD and, and some mental sort of health issues, but if they're not sort of an official diagnosis of a certain type of mental health issue, how would you respond to someone who says that was not a mental wellness issue, it's a mental weakness issue?
I would argue that whether you have diagnosed disorders or anything, everybody of course gets anxious under pressure, but I think that it just depends. I mean, I'm gonna say it's your mindset, but it really is. If you have the motivation if you're feeling a certain way and you want the motivation to flip that and want to succeed instead, I think that comes with the willingness of, well, I just need to flip it. And that's what I'm saying. I think talking to people about it and feeling like you're not alone in it is very important to feel like you have a mental weakness and stuff.
So earlier in your presentation, you explained how the physical state can improve as long as the mental state is flourishing. To what extent does it go the other way, where if you're mentally suffering and you physically take care of yourself, your mental state can improve?
I would argue that you can't, if you have a low or poor mental state, that your physicality will just, you can still probably perform, but not to the best of your ability. For example, I can even vouch for this. We had one of our teammates actually, she was going through a ton, but I mean, she would prefer to bottle it up. And before having a conversation with her, you could tell something was up. There was something going on mentally to where her physicality was just extremely poor. And even if she tried to brush it off and try to improve her physical fitness, you could still see that it's showing the face, not even like internally. It was becoming to show externally. And so I would argue that having a poor mental state is not going to lead you to your success or to the highest you can get to.
Thank you.
Yes.
Do you suppose that the focus that is spent on losing mental health could ever detract in any way from the focus that is also required by the physical need to develop?
Interesting. I'm sorry.
Do you suppose that the focus that is spent on one's mental health could detract on the focus that is also needs to be spent on physical development?
I think that once you have the correct mindset and the right focus on mental health, then yes, I would say that you definitely can focus now on physical health, as long as you have the correct mindset going into that. Yes.
As you stated that when your mental health is really bad, your performance level overflows. Could it be the same for the opposite way, that if you take care of your mental health like way too much, then you won't be able to like exceed like what you want to do? Like for example, if you are like anxious and instead of trying to fight through your anxiety, you just say, oh, it's okay, I'm anxious, I'm just gonna sit out. Do you think that could also stop like the performance?
Yeah, I definitely would think, or I would agree with the fact that if you neglect your mental health and just kind of say, it's fine, like I'm just gonna brush it off. Maybe for some people that might work, but overall it's shown that neglecting mental health can lead to a lot of issues later on. And I mean, that goes for sports and the actual world itself. If you just ignore how you're feeling, then that can completely change you. And I mean, some people, like you would surprise yourself. A lot of people can shake it off and loosen up, but as long as you're taking it as, okay, like I can overcome this. I might feel anxious about this, but I can get over it. Then that's the goal. That's what you want. But if you're completely just throwing it in the dust, then you're not going. I believe you're not going to succeed. Sorry.
To what extent do you think as a coaches or perhaps like in general as sports associations job or prerogative to maintain the mental health of their athletes? I'm thinking about like Savannah Biles made that choice on her own, but there have been instances, I mean like in this past NBA season, Draymond Green was suspended and he was forced to go to therapy before he could be allowed back into the games because his mental health was clearly affecting the way he interacted with other players, but it wasn't affecting his actual performance as an athlete. So to what extent is a coach or a league supposed to become involved in the mental health of their athletes?
I would say that a coach is, besides coaching the players, I think it's also their job to make sure that everyone's in line and balanced. I can even speak for my own team. We actually have a problem with that, where a lot of people might be going through things, but the coach, I mean, obviously you can self-reflect on yourself and like make sure that you know when the limit is to calm yourself and control your actions, especially with mental health. But I do think that the coach should definitely keep an eye on that and kind of check up and follow up with people, because like you were saying, how maybe a player, their physical health wasn't really showing that their mental health is affected. A lot of the times that's athletic toughness to me, but I think a lot of times, especially with women, a lot of people handle their physicality very poorly when they have poor mental health. So I think that it should be a coach's job to connect with players, not even just as a coach, but just individually, each player, and just making sure that they're in line, and maybe have just opening up to, if somebody's feeling a certain way, they should have that discussion.
Thank you.